what you are interested in, what your project is about, and also provide guidance. And so Chinonye Whitley, who is with the National Science Foundation, will be your mentor for the first 3 months. She'll be here through for April, May, and June, and we'll be discussing opportunities for you all to think about design thinking frameworks and how you think of your customer, your audience for your prototypes. Before we get started, I'm just going to do a brief introduction about AAAS, and then I'll be turning it over to you. So as many of you know, this project is sponsored by the American Association for the Advancement of Science through the wonderful grants that are provided to us by the National Science Foundation. AAAS is an organization that's been around for over 100 years. Our mission is advancing science, engineering, and innovation throughout the world for the benefit of all people. And what we're most known for is our journals, most specifically the Science Journal. But we have a plethora of journals in our family of journals, which include robotics, science signaling, translational medicine, and others. What you all are here for is because you all are a part of our cohort for 2022. We are under the Enhancing Making and Innovation Capacity for Students and Faculty via an Inclusive Community of Practice. What this project intends to do is support HBCU students and faculty in making innovation, entrepreneurship, and invention efforts. What really are the key elements of the program include what you all are going to be a part of in September, which is the HBCU Making and Innovation Showcase. But in addition to that, we do provide year-long virtual monthly engagements. So this year we'll be doing bi-monthly webinars for the faculty and students, and our monthly e-mentoring and coaching, which will also supplement the monthly engagements that you'll receive. Throughout the entire duration of the program, we'll be disseminating resources and information and opportunities to you all. Those can be found via our social media pages and our website. So the project team, Dr. Iris Wagstaff, who many of you have had the pleasure to meet, serves as the PI on the project. She's unable to be here today. Myself, Nila White, I am the co-PI, and then our colleague, Allison Gonzalez, who is not on the call today, but she is a senior program associate. And some of you may have had the pleasure to meet Allison last year at the showcase. I would also like to acknowledge our advisory board. We brought together this advisory board to kind of help guide the program, provide guidance on what would be best to kind of, provide information, resources, topical areas that would be of use and benefit to you all. And they also serve in capacity as speakers, presenters, and judges for our showcase. So again, Brandon Andrews, who many of you have had the pleasure of meeting over the course of 2 years. Quincy Brown, who I'd like to acknowledge was the creative behind creating the Making an Innovation Showcase, which he started in 2018. Dr. Laura Collins, who is at North Carolina A&T University. Dorothy Davis, who is the Executive Director of the Nation of Makers, which is a making foundation based here in the DC area. Dr. Ellie Feeney, she is currently at Arizona State University, but was formerly at North Carolina A&T and is a well-renowned engineer. Lakeisha Green-Wade, she's the founder and CEO of Wearable Tech Ventures, and is someone who is very passionate about seeing our HBCU students really succeed in invention, innovation, making, and entrepreneurship. Dr. Ron Williams, who's the founding director for the Center for Strategic Entrepreneurship at Coppin State University, and Joyce Ward, who is at the United States Patent and Trademark Office. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. Again, I really want to welcome each of you to our first e-mentoring session. And now, without further ado, it is my pleasure to turn it over to Dr. Chinonye Whitley from the National Science Foundation.
All right, good afternoon or morning, depending on where you are in the world, since we're in a hybrid environment. I thank AAAS for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Chinonye Whitley. Everyone calls me Dr. Chi-Chi. And I'm here to talk to you today about some design thinking frameworks. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And Kavita, you have your hand up. Do you have a question?
I'm sorry, Chichi. I had a question in terms of can we record the session? So please carry on.
Okay, no
Thank you.
problem. So I hope you're seeing my design thinking framework slide and not my home computer. And so I wanted to open with, again, thanking AAAS for inviting me to speak. I had an opportunity to give this presentation last year and also see the teams at last year's showcase. And it was such a pleasure that I had to come back and do it again. And I hope that these series of talks that we're going to be having will really help get you ready and in a great mindset, in a mind frame for the showcase that will be coming up in the fall. So what we'll be talking about is design thinking frameworks. I'll go through, we'll go through some introductions, and then I'll talk about design thinking. We'll also give you the opportunity to speak and introduce yourselves. And then I'll tell you a little bit about myself. And at the end, we'll have follow-up work because we'll come together in a month and you get to show me what you learned and each other. So I'm really looking forward to that. I wanted to put a disclaimer that I am a program officer at the National Science Foundation. This presentation is from my personal experience and professional experience. And so I'm participating in my personal capacity, and my participation doesn't constitute an endorsement by the National Science Foundation or the United States government. That said, I will be sharing opportunities from the National Science Foundation because I want to make sure that you're aware of that. Other things I wanted to encourage you to do was to save or talk about this talk on social media. So here's some hashtags for you to use, and you're welcome to use them now, in the middle of the presentation, at the end of the presentation, and just let us know what your thoughts are on the presentation and share what you're learning about this journey. So we'll do some quick introductions. I'm going to have one member of each team introduce themselves. They're not necessarily the spokesperson, but because we don't have time to go through everyone today, we'll have one person from each team volunteer. I'll also tell you a little bit about myself, and then we'll talk about frameworks and next steps. So for the team introductions, please identify one person from your team to speak. And once you've done that, you can use the raise hand function. You can use the chat function to coordinate, I believe, if you need to talk amongst yourselves. But what I'll ask for you to do is something that's a little different. I want you to give your team name and where you're from, and then answer the following two questions. What problem are you solving in one sentence or less, and for whom? And it has to be a person. So not a building, not a organization, not a industry. It has to be a person. So one example would be, my name is Chi-Chi. I'm a member of Team Afro Bloom, and I'm making it easy to source paper for new paper artists. So as you can see, the problem is sourcing paper for paper florists, and I'm focusing on people who are new to making paper flowers. And on the side, I make paper flowers. So that's why the example is there. All right, so now that I've had a chance to give you some time to organize yourselves, who would like to go first? Let's see. Alexis from Jackson State. Oh, or unless you're still waiting. Okay, I'm gonna go with the hand raise. So, Mr. Aloepo. Trying to use my Nigerian accent correctly.
Good day, everyone. Good everyone. My name is Olashibumi Olagwo. I'm a member of Team Alabama A&M, and we are trying to solve the problem of making education much more accessible and interesting for underrepresented group by gamifying the experience. So we can't wait to show you guys our amazing project, and I think you guys will love it. And I can't wait to learn from everybody on this meeting today. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for stepping up to be the first to speak. Remember to say a person. So if you're talking about underrepresented groups, let us know if you're talking about college students. Are you talking about people who are in K through 12, adults? Give me a person.
Yes, ma'am. So we're thinking about K-12 student.
Okay,
Yes,
perfect. Excellent. Thank you so much. It's wonderful to hear from you today.
I can go next. This
yes.
is Alexis.
Okay, Alexis, step on up.
Okay, hey everyone. My name is Alexis Brown. We are from Jackson State University. What problem are we solving? We are solving the food insecurity in the state of Mississippi within rural populations.
Okay, and who's in the population?
Minority groups.
What people? What person is that?
African Americans.
Women, men, mothers?
I believe we're focusing on men and women.
Men and women. Okay. All right. Thank you. Sounds great. Thank you for stepping up. All right. So I see that Ramina Javid has her hand or his hand raised.
Yep. Hi. Hello, everyone. My name is Ramina, and I'm from Morgan State University. I'm a PhD student. My teammates also are here, Ezaz and Danalia. So we are developing an app. So the problem is that we want to increase the safety of bicyclists and basically all micromobility riders in Baltimore City area. And I think we are designing it for anyone that use bike or scooter or use bike share programs in the Baltimore City.
I see. Okay, so the person is bike share riders in Baltimore.
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, thank you. It's very nice to meet you.
You too.
All right, Ms. Blount, please forgive me.
No worries. Hello, everyone. My name is Raquel Blunt. My team members are here. We are from North Carolina A&T State University. And the problem that we're solving is probiotic viability and shelf life. Our team name, I think I forgot that as of now, is probiotic gels. And we are solving this issue to help men and women that wish to gain the benefits from probiotics in their food systems.
So are they probiotic deficient?
Yes, they wish to take supplements and increase their probiotic intake. And so this would act as that, yes.
And so the problem that they have is they want it, but why?
So many consumers want to take probiotics and they have great benefits, health, immunity, cardiovascular. However, the viability and shelf life for many probiotics are reduced. So what you're taking, your body isn't receiving the fullness. Does that make sense?
Got you. So you're trying to provide
Make a better
solution
a delivery
so that they
system.
get the full probiotics. Excellent, for people who are seeking that benefit. Okay,
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Raquel. Jalen.
Hi, my name's Jalen Moody. Our team name is the Toxic 12 from Bowie State University. The problem we're solving is that organic chemical substance, specifically POPs, contaminate bodies of waters, affecting plankton, which in return contaminates the fish and is harmful for human consumption. Our target or our audience is marine scientists or scientists in general.
So you're seeking to help scientists to
analyze so we're gonna we hope to determine the amount of chlorine in water turbidity, and I can't think of the last one right off the top of my head, but it's one more thing that we're hoping to solve by creating a device to detect when POPs, the persistent chemicals, are present within the water.
And the scientists, do they work for a municipality? Do they work at a university? Do they work for a company? What kind of scientists are you targeting?
We haven't specified, so I guess it's something we could discuss. We just left it more broad for like marine, just marine scientists. So I guess that's one thing to take away from this is to specify the group more.
Okay, all right. Sam Davis Omakara.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Sam Davis Omakara. We haven't really thought about a team name, but we're thinking the Sustainable Three. We represent Philander Smith College here in Little Rock, Arkansas. The problem we're solving, for home is we are making it easier for working mothers to manage each household. And so like our target audience is working mothers. And because we want to achieve sustainable cities, we put a focus on sustainable households. And so, yeah, we are developing a solution to help working mothers have more power over sustainable households.
So
in the Turok house.
Your solution is?
So like I can break it down, it's like a 3-tier solution. And so we understand like a household could be managed using like water, waste, and energy. And like most people want to manage these 3 things, but the current solutions aren't efficient enough. And so we're kind of keeping an umbrella under these 3 things to help it make it easier to manage these 3 things: water, waste, and energy.
Okay. So so I'm your customer, the working mom. So I'm going to use something to have a sustainable household.
Yes, like a mobile app. So I don't know if since you're a working mom, like if you've ever thought about whether you left a light on or something before you left the house for work. And so you could switch it on and off from wherever you are. You could check the status from your workplace, if that makes sense.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Augustine.
Hello, everyone. My name is Augustine Dream, and my teammate attend Philander Smith College. Our team name is Cycolate Team, and the problem we're trying to solve is the issue of e-waste in the United States. So we are targeting like every single American, not just Americans, but everyone in the United States who uses mobile devices, trying to provide a platform where they could, trash their mobile devices easily. So, yeah.
Okay. And so you're saying everyone in the United States?
Yeah, as long as you own a mobile device like a phone, a laptop. So, yeah, just basic mobile devices.
Okay. And so within that group, what I want you to do is think about who would you talk to first within that group. And so I'll follow up on that, but that's some information that I want you to think about with your team.
All right.
Okay. And last but not least, Mr. Kabir.
So myself, I'm Muhib Kabir. I'm from Morgan State University, and my teammate Nasheed and Martin, they're also in here. So our idea is basically developing an mobile application. It's basically an architectural design that we are planning to support or can basically fit in the national structure as well, so that any state or any community can replicate using that particular architecture and support the food desert area in a sense of connecting foods to the community. So that's basically, and to be very specific about the audience group to start with, is basically the people who are living in the food desert, and within that community who are like elderly people and have some travel restrictions due to their health condition or disabilities. And to start with, as a study area, we definitely, since we are from Baltimore, we're going to start with Baltimore. Thank you.
So your solution has an architectural
design,
design, and so the people who are in Baltimore are going to use your solution to find food or to find
find the service that the food will be delivered to them. That is either bringing, I mean, it's a both way. We kept the loop open so that the food will come to them, or they will be able to go to the food grocery stores to buy the food. So connecting the food to the consumer.
So where does architecture fit into that?
So that's basically what the point of architecture that I'm mentioning is the application design architecture. So it's basically a blueprint of the application. So which can be kind of it's gonna be a scalable. So any of the region, any of the community within US territory can basically replicate it, and based on the design, it can be international as well.
Okay, so when you say design infrastructure, you're talking about computer science design, not buildings.
No, not buildings.
Yes, which, as you can tell, I'm a molecular biologist, which is why I made that conflation. So it's very nice to meet you and hear about all of your projects. And so that's it for introductions of the teams. I do appreciate hearing what you're doing, although I have some of your presentations, because what I want you to get used to doing is to explain in 1 or 2 sentences what you're doing so that it's easy, so that someone can understand it, and so that someone can place it in terms of what you're trying to solve and who you're trying to solve it for. And so as you continue going out and talking about your work, I want you to keep in mind that you want to be able to introduce yourself, your teammates, what you're trying to solve, who you're trying to solve it for, and then everything else will fall into place. And so I hope you didn't mind if I talked back and forth to you, because it's immediate coaching, it's e-coaching. And it's all in love, And so just to quickly go give you some perspective of why I take this approach. I'm trained as a molecular biologist, so I'm a scientist by training, but I also have experience in industry. After working as a management consultant for pharmaceutical companies, I went back into academia and worked in diversity, equity, inclusion. So worked at the institutional level. And that led me to the National Science Foundation, where I work now as a program officer. Part of my trajectory in terms of innovation policy includes working with the EPSCoR program. And this is a program at NSF that seeks to help folks that are funded by NSF to understand, how do you commercialize the research that you may have? And so the program itself gives you an experiential education curriculum where you go out and you identify and you talk to the people that you think are your customer, right? And after you go through that program, you learn whether or not you should start a business. Maybe you should revamp, maybe you should do something else. And so the program itself was amazing, but I had the opportunity during a fellowship to also develop initiatives focusing on broadening participation or increasing the diversity, equity, and inclusion of individuals that are underrepresented in STEM. And so that led me to my current role, where I work in a program that seeks to broaden geographical diversity. It's called the Established Program to Stimulate Competitive Research. And a lot of the work that I did with EPSCoR is able to carry on and also continue focusing on broadening participation in STEM innovation and entrepreneurship. And I would be remiss if I didn't comment on the fellowship opportunity that we have in EPSCoR, with a target of primarily undergraduate and minority serving institutions, such as HBCU institutions, where we give early career faculty the opportunity to go to NASA and do a extended visit there to advance their research agendas. So if you know anyone who just started as a faculty member in the last 6 years, and they have a sabbatical time coming up, have them call me. I'll put my information in the chat, and we're accepting applications up until May 12th. All right, so the reason why I gave you that brief introduction so that you can understand kind of where I'm coming from, where my conversation style will be coming from, and some of the things that have influenced me when it comes to learning about innovation and entrepreneurship. I've had a wonderful opportunity to develop new initiatives in the private sector as well as in the public sector at multiple scales, and all of it has involved extensive human engagement. And so this is a wild journey that you're about to take on, signing up for this showcase, because much of your work will involve human engagement. Okay, so what do we mean human engagement? You have to actually talk to actual people as part of this exercise. And what we'll be doing is talking about a particular framework, starting with a human-centered framework. And so as you're going about pursuing your ventures, you want to use an approach that focuses from the human perspective. And that's human-centered design, which is an approach to problem solving. It's often used in management frameworks, as well as solving complex or we call wicked problems. The 4 principles behind human-centered design focuses on first understanding the people that you're trying to help. Whose problems are you trying to solve? And so the reason why I immediately ask you what people, is because that is where you're going to be starting when you're going off on this journey. Not only understanding, but also focusing your solution on the people and making sure that you understand what the people's problems are and you're solving the right problem. And of course, because you're working with people, there's a lot of lack of predictability involved. And so you have to be willing to iterate or improve upon what you already have with information that you receive when you're talking to different customers. Design thinking is a human-centered approach that is often used in business frameworks because it gives you frameworks for how do you go about identifying what the solution will be for the customers that you're trying to help. In itself, it's a really interesting and a process to go through, and it comes in multiple stages. But by using this framework, you're going to be making decisions based on what is really wanted in the marketplace, instead of relying on information that you may already think you know, or information that you don't know that could lead to a risky choice. It gives you the ability to develop something that will be valuable, and then because it's valuable, it will be desired and purchased by your customer. Although this diagram provides the different steps of design thinking, this is highly nonlinear. So you might start with empathy, where you're seeking to just get an understanding of who it is you're designing your solution for. But you might jump to ideating once you have the information, or defining a problem. Once you're defining the problem that the people that you're empathizing with has, you're gonna generate ideas or ideate and come up with different solutions to be able to solve those problems. And then you're gonna create a prototype or a mock-up, either by drawing or physically, like a physical mock-up of what it is that the solution is that you would provide. Once you develop that mock-up or prototype, you're going to test it. You're going to go back to the people that you talk to, and you're just going to show it to them and observe what they're telling you about what you showed them. After you're showing them, you get their impressions, and then you might go back and iterate and do the whole process again, because now this raises a whole host of other questions and approaches. You may need to change your ideas or your prototype. And eventually you would get to the point where you're implementing it or you're offering it to your customer, and that would be able to generate sales or funding if you're fundraising. There are key actions that are central to design thinking. The first is having a bias towards action. So it's very easy for me to sit here and talk to you, but it's even easier for me to ask you what your team name is, what's your solution, and what is the person that you're designing for, right? So immediately when we started the talk, you started talking, not me, right? And so that is one of the central actions of design thinking. We'll be continuing to do that in our sessions. There's, again, a focus on human values as well as collaboration. And collaboration across boundaries, meaning that you're collaborating with people that have ideas that are different from yours, because you need as many perspectives to design solutions that will be inclusive of those that you're working with. You want to be mindful of each step of the process, where you are, and make sure you're in that step and not jumping around, so that you can get as much information as you can. And again, the prototyping is key, because the prototype is something that you're going to be showing. You're not going to be telling a person what to think. You're going to be showing so you can take in the reactions of the customer once you get to that stage. You'll also find, in addition to being iterative, that there are there's a convergent process and a divergent process. So the divergent process means you're trying to be open to as much input or information as you can, and then you're going to be narrowing down, and then you might diverge again and then converge on the solution. So in this first stage where we're going to be discussing empathy, this is the space where you're diverging. So you're going to be going out there, getting as much information, talk to as many customers as you can to be able to understand what is their perspective, what are their needs. And then you're going to try to define the problem that they have, so you can focus your solution on making sure that it will address their problems. You'll diverge again when you're brainstorming and generating ideas. So you may already have a solution based on what we talked about, but you might have to change your mind and generate additional ways to focus in on the problems that your customers might have. And then narrowing again to test or prototype and show your customers one thing. By the way, did I say you guys are going to be talking to customers? This something is very essential to this process. And so when we look at the first stage of design thinking, we want to put ourselves in the shoes of the people that we're trying to help. So for the person who's helping working mothers, I think that was, oh no, I think I might have, was that Sam Davis? Okay.
Yeah.
So Sam Davis, you're gonna call me and you're gonna ask me a variety of questions. You may not be able to come to my house and observe me, but building empathy is trying to understand what is the daily life like for someone like myself. So as a working mother, what is it that who do I interact with? Who do I talk to, right? What are the experiences that I have? You need to be immersed into your customer's experience in life. You want to do that because you might have some preconceived notions based on observations of people that you might already have, or kind of thoughts that might come in your head that you need to readjust, because you're going to need to focus on the people specifically that you're trying to help. And you need to make sure that whatever you're offering is in alignment with what it is that I need. So right now I need someone to help me teach me how to compost. I have smelly compost pails in my house. So I need you to help me figure that out as a working mom that wants to be sustainable. Okay, so we'll talk after that. When you're trying to empathize, you want to think about all the different types of people that are going to benefit from what you're offering. So we had another example where bicyclists in Baltimore were going to be supported, right? And so I believe it was trying to make sure that there were no barriers, or eliminating barriers for those that are cycling in Baltimore. Please correct me if I'm saying that incorrect. You want to think about within that group, which cyclists. You want to work with people that are new to cycling, Do you want to work with people that have been cyclists for a long time and they actually have cycling clubs? Do you want to work with people who are trying to teach your kids how to cycle, right? There are multiple, what we call verticals within a given customer segment that you will want to focus in on, because you want to be able to start with those that are going to want your solution the most, but you have to be diverse because the first group of people may not be your customer, right? Other things that you want to consider when you're thinking about empathy is that you need to think of folks who are not necessarily your customer, but are in what we call the ecosystem of your customer. So those people might be those that are influencing your customer to make a decision. They may be people that make rules, right? So they write regulations or laws that will impact how your customer makes decisions. They may be competitors with you, right? Or people that might sabotage you if you encounter them in your customer's ecosystem. And you have to figure out, how do you go and talk to them? This is all going to be important because as you're getting all of this information back, you're going to be incorporating that into your business model and approach to how you're going to pursue your business. So now that I've already told you that you have to actually go and talk to people that you've never talked to before, you have to talk to strangers. I want to give you some tips, because what you're going to be doing is making a list of people to call or Zoom or schedule interviews with or meet in person in a socially safe distance since we are in the pandemic time. And you're going to try to find a way to, if first, interview them in person. If you can't interview them in person, then interview them via video conference. If you can't interview them by video conference, interview them by phone. Avoid surveys because you can't see body language, and you need to be able to have a space for capturing either their environment, or you might look at their social media to see photos of their experience. But you want to try to put yourself best in the position of your customer when you're going out and trying to engage and talk to your customer. Use engaged listening body language while looking into their eyes while they're talking to you. You look into their eyes, you're at their eye level, or your questions do not lead them to a particular answer. So they're not yes or no questions, they're open-ended. And they result in letting the customer fill in the space. And then when you're out there talking to folks, always end with, who else should I be talking to? Do you know someone that I should be talking to? Can you introduce me? Can you do an e-introduction, right? Because that's how you're going to be getting follow-on interviews when you start with the first person. I'll talk about some initial questions to start with, but make sure that once you've broken the ice, you continue to get to as much information as you can. So we often talk about using the 5 whys, right? You start off with a question and then you ask why again. You could ask up to 5 times, and you might actually get to the root of a true need or pain point that your customer might have. You also learn whether or not a particular solution might be nice, but may not be critical, right? And so the type of problems that you're trying to unearth and identify from your customers are critical, such that they need it yesterday. When you're talking to your customers, you want to try to understand what type of activities or tasks or jobs they do in a given scenario. What is particularly painful about what they do, and what is a positive or gain creator, right? What makes their jobs easier, or what brings them more joy. And the key thing, and this is going to be the trick, when you're going out and talking to customers, we call it customer discovery, do not talk about what you're offering. Okay, so do not talk about your platform for identifying food locations. Do not talk about your app for identifying barriers for biking, right? Don't talk about the sensors you're building to sense different contaminants in the water, okay? Be sure that you're introducing yourselves as students and you're working on a project for school, okay? Then ask them questions around what you're doing, but don't come out and say, we are developing X, Y, and Z. The reason why is that we as humans want to please whoever we're talking to, right? And so by introducing what you're trying to do, you can introduce confirmation bias, where the information that people are giving you is in alignment with what you told them rather than what they truly believe, okay? The other thing you're trying to do is make sure that you don't disclose what you're doing and potentially disclose intellectual property or ideas that someone else might capitalize on. So when you're going out and you're talking to folks, you might say, hi, I'm a student at Jackson State University. We're working on a project surrounding this topic. I'd like to talk to you for about your experiences, or do an informational interview to learn more about your journey or your work. And when you're able to set up your interview, you might say, you know, what is it that you like about the work that you do? Can you tell me what your role is? What is your title? What tools or products do you currently use? What type of projects do you work on? What's really difficult about your work? What gives you a lot of energy about your work? What works really well? What would you suggest that I use for a given approach? Once you've actually gone out and I'm going to encourage you to, over the course of the summer, do 15 interviews, okay? After each interview, you need to make sure that you confer with your team. So when you're going out, go out with at least 2 people, not only for protection, but also so that one person can manage the talking and asking of questions, and one person can be writing notes as the talking is happening. When your interview is over, you need to, what they say, download, okay? What is it that you heard? And each team member can say that. What are the key learnings or lessons or takeaways from what this person said? Write these down, and then once you get enough notes, start to organize your insights into different categories. If there are ideas and solutions that are repeated across the different interviews that you have, write down the top ideas that are emerging and share with your teammates and say, you know, maybe this is something we need to confer about. Maybe we need to think about how we're going to make an adjustment to what we're offering, okay? And so a lot of what I've been saying has been kind of built into a greater framework that you can find at strategizer.com. And this is called the value proposition canvas, okay? So there's a business model canvas that is a broader canvas that helps you think about all the different categories that you need to think about for your particular business or nonprofit. But there's also kind of a zoomed in look at this business model canvas that focuses on 2 things. One is the customer. Did you say bless you? You have a question? Okay. One is the customer, right? Or what we call customer segment. The other is the value proposition, which I really haven't talked about yet because I want you to be focusing on your customer. Within this framework, remember when I said, make sure that you are writing down or asking your customer, what is it that they do? What are their tasks? What are their activities? That fits into the customer jobs part of the framework, okay? And then when you ask them, what brings you joy, what brings you energy about what you do, that is the gains part of this framework. And then what is it that is really difficult, right? What is it that if you could solve one problem, it would be, what would it be? That goes into this pain or pain points, what makes it hard. These are where you're going to identify what your value proposition is, right? Now, your value proposition is a concept that is used in business to describe what you're providing to your customer, right? The value is what you as a provider, a company or a nonprofit is delivering to their customers and what makes that customer choose your product over others, okay? It sits in these different areas in terms of what is it that you do? What is it that you're offering? What is it that your customer needs and cares about? And what does your competition do really well? And so hopefully you're doing something better than your competition that your customer needs and cares about. And so that's why developing empathy and getting to know your customer is really important, because it's going to feed this component of the value proposition matrix. So once you finish your interviews, I want you to come back to this framework, and I want you to kind of fill out a framework for each interview so that you can organize what you're learning. And you don't have to fit it into this small circle. I know it could be kind of small once you actually get the piece of paper, but if you have different sections, you can organize your notes into those sections. Later, you're going to be looking at the value proposition side of the canvas and say, this is what you're offering, the square here. You're offering a specific product or service or task, and the benefits of what you're offering are either going to be a gain creator that's defined by your customer, right? Or it's going to relieve the pain point that your customers articulated, okay? So once you start getting enough information on this side of the canvas about multiple customers, you can start using that information to fill in the left-hand side of the canvas. When you're also debriefing, I want you to go through a series of questions. And normally I would have you do that here, but what I want you to do is to, after you have your interviews, answer these questions here. Is this the right person for what you're trying to offer? How do you define them? What demographic information would you use? What jobs do they do? What do they love? What frustrates them? Prioritize their job gains and pains. And then when you're looking at the value proposition side, think of these gains and pains, how do I mirror what I'm offering so that it's in alignment with what they're saying, which is why you need a lot of input from a lot of people so that you can actually have information that can answer these questions on a higher level. All right. So I'm gonna end my talk with these take-home points, and we're gonna transition to activities that you have, and we'll also stop for questions and answers. The key is right now thinking of your customers, right? Or the customer segment, the groups of people based on specific characteristics. If you were marketing to people, you would think of what industry they're in, what age they have, their gender, their marital status, their location, where are they in their life stage. If you are marketing to other businesses, you might think of what industry they're in, how many employees do they serve, what types of products do they purchase, and where are they located. And again, the value proposition we'll talk about that a little bit more, but that's what you're actually going to deliver to your customer that makes them want to buy what you're offering. Okay, so we've talked about this first circle in design thinking. We're not going to get through the entire framework, but I wanted to focus in on the most important one because that's going to be the source of where you're going to find all of your information. And at the end of the day, you're going to be using that for your pitches. Because if you've ever pitched to someone, they like to understand what is it that you're doing, what is the problem you're solving, and who are you solving it for? And the more that you can demonstrate who you're solving it for and demonstrate that you have what they want, the more that's going to make someone want to invest in you. So for our next session in a month, you're going to be working on generating interviews, going out and talking to strangers, filling in this part of the canvas for the most part, using that to inform the left-hand side. And then you're going to fill out this Mad Lib. So at our next session, we'll talk about the Mad Lib, but I'm going to give that to you because we'll be using our sessions where you will be presenting this Mad Lib or this fill in the blank sentence to your colleagues. So I will be doing far less talking and you will be doing far more talking. So this Mad Lib is one that's created to help pinpoint your value proposition. And it goes, our product or service helps this specific customer who wants to do these specific tasks by doing a verb that alleviates a customer pain and or increasing or doing something that provides a customer gain, unlike what your competitor does, right? So I'm introducing this to you because I want you to get comfortable with getting information and then putting it into this Mad Lib. And we'll be working together to fill that out. So with that, I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you today. I would love for you to put your questions in the chat, as well as post online what you gain from the session. And I'll also be providing this presentation to you so you can have a series of resources that were used to create the slides. So thank you again for allowing me to share my knowledge with you. And you're welcome to follow me online or just give me a call. And I'll also put my PO information in the chat. All right, so that's it. I'm going to turn the floor back to you, Neela.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Chichi. That was amazing. And I think our student teams will really find the value of how we're using these first 3 e-mentoring sessions to really help, as you've stated, identify the audience. Once you identify the audience, everything else will fall into place because you know exactly what the prototype should be, what are you looking to solve. So thank you so much for that guidance on that. And I do just want to take one moment, if there were any of our student team members or faculty advisor, if anyone had any questions right now, we have about 3 minutes, but I just wanted to know if anyone had any questions. And Chichi, do you mind, you'll be sharing those slides with me and I'll disseminate them to the students. At that time, your contact information, I'll also provide that to them if that's okay with you.
Yeah, sure.
So you'll have Dr. Chichi's direct contact information and the slides and assignments as listed. And I do want to just point out that it will be less than a month for our next session. Based on Dr. Chichi's schedule with NSF, we had to be able to capture her as we could. So our next session is going to be May 11th. It's going to be a Wednesday. We know you may not be able to get all 15 interviews done, but we really trust that you can get some of those interviews. One, she says one, started. But again, I just wanted to take one quick moment to see if anyone had any questions for Dr. Chichi before I give our closing remarks. I don't see any hands raised. Okay, so we have one in the chat. How do you avoid adding a lot of features for customer feedback?
Well, what you have to do is figure out what's the most important feature and start with that. And we call that the minimum viable product, the minimal viable offering. And then as you continue to gain information from other folks, you can add, but you're already putting out what you're offering first to gain that feedback, rather than waiting to perfect what you have before you put that out on the market.
Thank you. And then I see Christina has her hand up.
It's Sheila. I'm sorry I signed in.
Oh, Sheila, I'm sorry. Yes, no worries.
That's fine. Is there a process for, should a team develop their product or service to the point of commercialization by the end of this program? Is there a next step, something that will help them actually take it to market?
Do that one more time. Just, if you're going to commercialize by the end of this session, is there something that they're going to receive to take it to market?
Yeah, that was her question. So I don't believe that, based on what our proposal has given us, we're not at that stage yet. But what our plan is, I appreciate that question, Sheila. If these are the types of things we want to use our in-person session to discuss with our student team members and faculty advisors, so we can have discussions of how the student teams can take these prototypes and advance them into commercialization. We can definitely have a focus of that in our in-person showcase, but as the proposal and as the project stands, we don't have any mechanisms in place to do that at this time.
Okay, thank you.
I'll also add that one of the things that you need, of course, is financial capital to get started, but the other is social capital, which is networks and connections. And so that you will be getting as soon as you start talking to people, because eventually those people that you're talking to for information will be the people that you come back to and say, okay, well, now I'd like to share with you what we're developed. And so you're actually developing that commercialization aspect now.
Are there any other questions? We have time for one more. This one's from Samuel. What is the best approach for interviewing an audience outside your reach, not in the US?
You reminded me that the best way to do it is to use a warm introduction and get someone to introduce you to another person. And that would apply in all cases, but you start with your networks, your colleagues' networks. So your team members are also within your network, as well as their faculty advisors. And you get them to introduce you through email or through text. And that helps you get your first interview, even if there was someone overseas.
Thank you, Dr. Chichi. And I'm going to close. We have one final slide that I want to share with the group. And that is that the slides and recording will be posted on our HBCU Making and Innovation site. I'll be sharing this in an email to the student teams. It's very important. We have a post-webinar, post-e-mentoring session survey that I will post here in the chat, and you'll also receive via email. We want to make sure that this information that we are giving to you is useful. I'm very confident that this is useful for the student teams and the prototypes. We want to make sure that you are receiving all of the resources possible. So if you can complete that post-webinar, post-e-mentoring survey, we greatly appreciate it. As mentioned, our next e-mentoring session will take place on Wednesday, May 11th at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. We will be sending the registration out for that later in this week so that you all can register and get ready for that. Again, as Dr. Chichi mentioned, you can have at least one interview done at that time and have that ad lib and the charts filled out. We'll be using that to reference our next session. And then also as a reminder, follow us on social media, use the hashtags that Dr. Chichi provided to kind of provide your comments, remarks on this session. We're on Twitter and then also on LinkedIn. All right, so with that, I want to thank you, Dr. Chichi, for taking the time today to meet with our student teams. To all of our student teams, it's been a pleasure to again meet you virtually today. We look forward to these sessions throughout the year leading into the showcase. Again, you'll have the pleasure of having Dr. Chichi with you in April, or we have her in April, but in May and in June. So please utilize, taking the time to email her, chat with her. She'll be happy to answer any questions and support you all in any capacity as we think about these prototypes and as you think about the pitches leading into the showcase. I've just posted the link to the survey in our chat, but you'll also receive that by email. And with anything, Chi-Chi, do you have any final remarks for the students?
Don't feel nervous about filling in the ad lib because you're going to change it the more people you talk to. So just go through the experience of filling it out, and then we'll work on it in our next 2 sessions, okay?
All right. So with that being said, thank you all for joining us today, and we will see you all on May 11th. All right.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
All right, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Take care.
Have a good
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Hey, Neela.
Hi.
Maybe you could stop the recording.
Do you need me to stay on?